What up everybody, Matt Field. We are here at Drift Cave. This is the shop where we not only build my cars, also customers' cars. And this is one hell of a customer build right here. This is Garrett's new, pretty much pro spec level S14. So I'm gonna take you through it, show you guys what we've done, some stuff that he's had, some similarities to my S14, and also just how far the S chassis build level has come, because this thing is even a lot further along than my S14 was back in the day. So, to start in the front, LS, of course, I mean, come the hell on. What are we doing over here? Same supercharger bracket setup. This is Vortex 2011 and up Camaro supercharger bracket with a V7 YSI. Same exact setup that I ran on my S14. Treadstone intercooler, same setup that I used to run on my S14 too. He did switch over to a 10 rib on that. That's what Odie switched over to too. It works phenomenal. I used to run a cog setup. It's really hard on crankshafts. This is really good. This looks like a steel block engine, so it started life as a 6-liter. It's been punched out. I mean, no matter what, I had a steel block in my S14 forever and ever before I started working with Concept Performance and started running their batty aluminum LSR blocks. We chopped the front end off right off the bat. One thing that's like taking stuff a step further too is chopping the lower frame rails off. It gains you a lot more room. That is the old tension rod bracket and old frame rails there. So we like to cut that off right off the bat. Gives you a lot more room to work with. Plus, we use really thin wall tubing. So like the C6, it has a crushable front end. So if you do crash, you hope that that thin wall box tubing just caves and your shock tower bars and your regular frame rails or where your tension rod brackets mount don't move. That's the goal. That's why we use this stuff. It's super thin wall. It's literally just meant to hold the front of the tension rod brackets and basically hold the intercooler. It's really thin. Same thing with the bash bar. We use thin wall tubing. It is bolt on. Makes life easier when you're going to be pulling an engine and stuff, because if you look at this, you can remove the whole front end and pull the engine right out the front. You're not having to like tilt the engine or not have the gearbox. Engine and gearbox can come right out. Super easy. We chose to use some really small steel rod. It is solid. I like the solid stuff because it'll take a bend. If you bump somebody in the corner, the thing will bend together and you just pull it right back out. I've used tube in the past, but tube usually kinks. So the solid rod, it is a tiny bit heavier, but look how simple it is. This is literally his whole front end right here. This is everything. Hood pin, headlight mounts, fender mounts, everything all together, and the intercooler mounts right down to the frame rails. This car does have a rear mount radiator, so these are his coolant lines. We are trying to utilize as many components that Garrett had before, because probably should have started with this. Garrett crashed, kind of totaled the chassis. So all this is his same stuff. Same engine, same gearbox, same clutch, same plumbing. It's gonna be all the same stuff. Obviously, new chassis, new body, and new wiring. That'll be the upgrade, but it's gonna be the same quick change, the same gearbox, all of that stuff, which is great. I like to tell people, like Jerry's actually in here cutting the hole for the gearbox for the shifter in the trans tunnel. This is a G-Force GSR, and I tell people like the gearbox is probably going to outlive the car, so it's worth it. Spend the $7,500 on the gearbox because it'll probably outlive your car. And sure enough, he's putting the gearbox in a second chassis. Pretty interesting. This stuff is new. This is something that we haven't done before. Transmission tunnel, MA Motorsport makes it. Their company that does sheet metal stuff, Alaria. They do the cat hump delete and the trans tunnel. You can get either or as a package. But I mean, look at this. They put the time in. You have a gas pedal. It's meant to either run a stock gas pedal. You can fit a drive-by-wire in there. You do have to do some trimming. Like, it doesn't just drop into the chassis, but it saves you so much time. And coming from a fabricator where we've done trans tunnels before, I've done it in all different ways. Steel rod, complete sheet metal, multiple sections. Try to do it out of one piece like this. Between this and this, it's the way to go. Absolutely the way to go. Look how much more seat room you have. It actually makes a flat floor for an S chassis. Really cool. Same thing, like this is why we work with the companies that we do. Cage, literally just ordered it right from the internet, showed up on a pallet, brought it to us. It drops in, it fits perfect. As long as you know what you're doing and you know that the tubes will fit, trust that they will fit. If it doesn't fit, it's probably your fault. Just keep that in mind, everybody, because this cage fit perfect. And this is like a FIA style cage. X in the back hoop, you know, missing a couple of tubes that we're still tacking some stuff in, but this is a real deal. A-pillar supports, all of that. And you can see in here, we spent a lot of time stripping all the glue from all the seams, stitch welding every single thing. Literally everything is stitch welded. It's freaking crazy. Wheel tubs in here because obviously we cut it out for big tires, raise the wheel well, and then have the wheel well coming through here with all the block off plates so that it's all sealed from the outside. Moving to the back of the car. So this is where all the magic happens in a drift car. This is where I feel like most of the engineering goes, because you want to put as much weight over the rear axle as possible, but not too much puller weight. So you don't want too much weight behind the rear axle, but you do want to try to balance the car as close to 50-50 as possible. So Fuel Safe makes this super awesome fuel cell 4 radium. This was already his. He already had it pretty much in the same place, so that's fortunate because this is exactly where we like to put them. Sweet firewall. Jerry did an amazing job on this firewall. It's so much freaking time and effort and energy that goes into this stuff. Like, it's all sheet metal, it's all handmade. Every little piece needs to fit perfectly. You have to notch the firewall around the shock towers. You want to still be able to adjust the shocks. And we have to remember, we're building all of this keeping in mind that we're trying to utilize as much of Garrett's components as possible, like the plumbing. This is where he had it on his other car. We're trying to not, one, spend a bunch of money on brand new hoses and fittings when he has perfectly good stuff, and two, it's a lot of time every time you have to take it apart and trim it and move it. So he figured it out. It was working with him. His other car was built really, really well. We're just trying to improve on it, which is like this. This is a big improvement, big step up from what he had before. This is a PWR, kind of their universal drift radiator, and they call it the universal drift radiator because it's about the width that fits in between all drift cars' frame rails. It's about the height that fits in under all drift cars' trunks, and it's about the shape that you need to have the plumbing going that way. And it has the best fans that you could pretty much buy, the biggest, gnarliest, spall brushless fans. And it's kind of like one of those, if you have a drift car, this radiator more than likely fit. And for the price point, you cannot beat it. It is the best core that you can buy with the best fans that you can buy. I mean, come on, it's kind of a no-brainer. Dash 20 inlets and outlets in it, and they give you dash 12 stuff. Check this out, coolest part of it, no radiator cap. How often have you guys seen a radiator that you buy from somebody that doesn't have a radiator cap? But that's for good reason. See that little black tank right there? That's a radium expansion tank right here. So that's the actual radiator cap. That'll have a little bit of air in it and a little bit of water, and basically it allows the radiator to stay completely full, and when it gets hot and the water expands, fills up the expansion tank, doesn't puke anything out. When it cools off, pushes it all back. Keeps the system completely unaerated, and you notice how that's higher than the radiator? That's so that there's zero air in the radiator. So that again was a component that Garrett bought. Good purchase because it makes life easy. Electric water pump mounted back here. That was already his as well. With the plumbing and fittings, like that's kind of where he had it. We made it work with him, just trying to keep it nice and tidy. AccuSunk, this actually looks new. I'm not sure if he provided it or if that's where he had it before, but my boys went ahead and put the 2 batteries. It's set up for like an Optima style, that Group 24, I think it's Group 24 battery. Mount them upside down, get the way back as far back as possible. This tube rear setup is actually even more updated than what I would have on my S14. My S14 is a little bit old school, but 2F makes the body panels that obviously save so much time in mounting taillights and trunk and all of that. And this box tube structure is kind of an Odie style actually. He's showed me a bunch of pictures, and he's the one who runs this single tube here. That's kind of to make the FD rulebook happy. And then the side pieces. We did this on Wataru Masayama's car and Zandara's car, and it works out so good. You're not constantly changing bash bars and whatnot, so it works on his car, it works on the other customer's car that we built. We really love the style. Looks great. And like on my Corvette, I kind of have an old school bash bar that attaches to both sides. I go through 2 or 3 of those a race. This, it'll last them all season. You can see down here, the boys are just working on getting the rear subframe in the car. This chassis actually it was really good. It was a really straight, really good chassis, but it did have a damaged subframe post. It was caked in and kind of pulling out of the chassis. So we spent a lot of time getting that back into its place, and we're still kind of working with beefing it up, welding it, plating it so that it can never bend again, and then getting the new subframe in. And this is a MA Motorsports subframe as well. Again, it's one of those things. We built them in the past. We can build them, but why not support other companies that support drifting. These are the best ones. They put the diff right where it needs to be. It's not too high, it's not too low. The new style Winters diffs provide plenty of room where the chassis is, where normally the older ones would hit. This is the cool 6-bolt rear cover right here. Yeah, that's the good stuff. And obviously all his suspension, he's already had it. All his brakes, he's already had it. Rack, cross member, all that's basically a carryover from his other car. So we're kind of getting to the point. This chassis is going to be ready for paint really soon here, and then it's wiring, fitting body, paint, wrap, everything else. So we're getting close. Your car's coming out great, Garrett. Thank you for trusting us with it. We got a lot more work to do, but it's on its way.